Talker families. I still have the flashlight on the desk because, again, it's the middle of the day. It's bright as sun in here, so don't need it. Again, I want to talk to you a little bit about when your child, catches up, when your child, approaches the typical range or, is equivalent with their, language typical peers. And one of the things that I run into a lot is parents will, maybe at a re-eligibility meeting or an evaluation, their child will be tested again with standardized tests and look at standardized test scores. And the typical range, the narrow typical range for standardized test scores is a quotient anywhere from about 85 to 115. And this compares to percentiles, somewhere around, 12th, 15th percentile up to like 75th, 78th percentile on that curve. So parents are very excited. They say, oh my goodness, my child's standard scores are now in that very, lower edge of typical. And they're very happy. And then they see their child in real ambient environments, or teachers or other helpers are telling them, your child is continuing to experience this challenge or that challenge, or they're still not talking as similarly as their language typical peers. And parents are like, I don't understand. I was told that my child would catch up around now, and the scores are saying that my child's typical, and why aren't they acting and talking typically? This is just the one little thing I wanted to put in your mind. Standard scores precede performance in the ambient, real, everyday environments, often by like 12 to 18 months. So your child may take a test in a quiet room with a really skilled diagnostician or therapist who makes the environment perfect to focus their attention and waits till they have their attention and makes them very comfortable and gives them a limited number of choices and comes up with a standard score that is very valid for the purpose of that standard score. But that's not necessarily a measure of what they do in the real environment. I want to give you this parallel, right? Let's say that you are a high schooler who's about to graduate, and your parents said to you, you know what? We're so proud that you're taking a foreign language. If you take the national merit test in, Spanish or French or whatever it is that you're studying, we're going to pay for a summer for you in Spain or Paris. And so you study really hard, and, in the beginning of high school, you don't know any of the foreign languages. By the end, you've taken, Spanish 4 or, advanced French or whatever, and you sit down finally before your graduation to the national merit test for that language. And you knock it out of the, you get in that typical range. Let's say you're just right at the 50th percentile, or even at the lower typical range. Maybe, you have a standard score of 85. Yay, you passed the national merit test in Spanish or French, and you're so excited because now your parents are going to send you to a real ambient environment where everybody's speaking French or everybody's speaking Spanish, and you go. Guess what? You're probably going to find yourself in the middle of a square in Salamanca, Spain, and everybody's talking at once, and there's all these new, visuals and smells and ways of being, and all of a sudden, even though you're a national merit finalist in Spanish, you're not going to talk like a national merit finalist in Spanish. It's going to take you some time to accommodate, to be able to handle all the input, to realize the different speeds people talk, the different ways they talk, just the pragmatics of the situation. It's probably going to take you a while in Spain before, even though you scored well on this test, to actually perform that way in real ambient environments. I hope that analogy just lets you think about that, right? To think about the fact that sometimes you're going to look at your child's test scores and they're not going to seem like what your child is doing in the real environment. And we have to give our child time to acclimate to that, to be able to take in all the visual and auditory and pragmatic cues and learn to then access the language with more ease and more facile ability. And so just be patient. Having those scores come up is great. They most often precede actual, factual, behavior in the real world. So just a little note on that and something to think about. And I will leave you with that. So everybody have a great afternoon. Thanks for listening. Please leave your questions. If you think about it, let us hear from you at the foundation. Bye.